Hey, paisans, the time has come. On the air since 2009, the independently produced, non-FCC compliant champ of video game talk podcasting. Here comes Tiger Claw Radio. Here's your host, Critical Failure.
Welcome, everybody. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. I'm your host, Critical Failure. It's been a bit. It has been a bit. Oh, yeah. Took some time off, played some video games, hung around, did my thing, and it's been a good time. It's been a good time. A lot of Grand Theft Auto. Still making my way through Grand Theft Auto 4. I'm about... How far am I into that game? I looked it up, and it says, you know, the internet says you can beat that game in 40 hours or so. And I'm, just passing the 30-hour mark now. So I guess I've got a ways to go. Although, the more I play it, I've noticed that it feels like each mission at this point feels like, all right, this is going to be the last mission. This is going to be the last mission. Oop, pop, pop, fizz, fizz. Yeah, so still a great time. Still a great time. Apart from that, I sort of did a deep dive on the Pico 8, which makes it for a difficult conversation because... It's the peak. How can we touch base on a program that I've written from scratch? First of all, not going to be as good as anything else you can get out there. Second of all, there's no common point of reference, but I did manage to make some like solo RPG tools. Not really a game, but like a simple program, roll some dice or whatever, because it runs from the Ambernic and from the Powkitty V90. So introduction to Pico 8 coding. I stepped through a tutorial on building a top-down adventure game on Pico 8, which was great because that feels more like an MS-DOS game. And that's been pretty cool. Don't really have a whole lot I can share on that front, except that Pico 8 is a good time. But not only is it a good time, the more I use it, the more I can feel myself turning into a stereotypical programmer. Communicating with people is becoming more difficult and that sort of thing. But only a tiny bit. Still a good time. All right. We're still at the top of the show. I like to start off Tiger Claw Radio with a chiptune, and I've still got the Battle of the Bits Commodore Quadrilogy sitting on my desktop, and I've been over to that website today. They don't have any new releases from this past week, although they do have 4 separate competitions active right now. So I'm hoping, these things take time because they go through a voting process and whatever. We'll have a bit more of a lull in their releases, and then maybe in a month or two we'll see like a burst of a bunch of releases at once. So that's pretty cool. So we're gonna check out the Commodore Quadrilogy one more time here on Tiger Claw Radio. That's Bird Run. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. So, I do have, I do have a Vancast that I recorded at some point in the last couple weeks. I can't remember much of what was said, but hey, let's go there now. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. And here we are on the road again. This is being recorded at 3:47 in the afternoon. It is my birthday. This is being recorded on March 6th. So today is the day we celebrate me aging. And speaking of bad decisions, I was hanging around on eBay looking at PS1 games. I keep my eye open on new auctions and specifically imports and stuff. And there was an auction for Resident Evil 1 and 2, or should I say Biohazard 1 Director's Cut and Biohazard 2 bundled together for the PS1 import from Japan. This surfaced this morning, and you know how it goes when an auction drops for a very low price, or whatever, but it has like 6+ days on it, and it's like, all right, this is going to end for more than that. It's okay. So I lowballed it because sometimes you never know. And that it's still like, for those two games, I think it's currently at like $850 or something. That's still pretty amazing. I'm thinking I'm waffly. I think I might be willing to go as high as like $25, which $25 for those two I think is still like crazy low. It's more than I've paid for a PlayStation game in a very, very long time. But I don't know, man. Even pre-internet, there were a handful of games where we knew a little something about their Japanese counterparts. A handful of games. One of those games was the original Resident Evil. Everybody knew that the opening cutscene in the original Resident Evil was different in Japan. Something about it, there were rumors about it. Oh, it was so much bloodier, so much this or that or the other. But we knew it was different. Sure enough, you can look it up and watch it. Watch the introduction of the original Biohazard on YouTube, and it's not that different, I guess. But it was, it's gimped. It's gimped for American audiences, and the gameplay was adjusted for the American video game rental system at the time. Although I don't know if that's still true with the director's cut. But yeah, I don't know. I think it might be kind of cool to have those. So we'll see. We'll see how high it goes. It's one of those things where it's like, it's a PlayStation game, man. Just get the ISO file or whatever. But as long as it's not bonkers, it's not. There's no reason I can't get the disc. The discs are fun to have. It's been the OG PlayStation so far, at least in my experience, seems to be the easiest of all the Japanese systems to get into as an American, because I didn't have to buy any special hardware to do it. I was able to do emulation with the actual discs, which has been great. PS1 emulation these days, if you're doing it from a computer, is perfect. It's great. So that's cool. I've always loved the original Resident Evil series, even though nobody else seems to like it. Modern players don't seem to like it, and from what I'm told, the developers of the original Resident Evil games don't like it either. But yeah, I like them. Tank controls were never a problem for me. There was way more tension. I don't know. It just seemed really cool. They still have a special place in my heart. And again, the first Resident Evil game that came out, I got desensitized to like violent movies and stuff very late in life. I was not one of these kids that could watch all the scary movies and not be fazed by it a little bit. My buddy Angie was. And he got a hold of Resident Evil, and for him it was just like, yeah, it's kind of supposed to look like a scary movie, and it's pretty fun to play and whatever. But man, that scared the pants off of me when I was little. And I think because of that, that's why it's so special to me now, because of the impact that it had. It couldn't do that today. Put that same game in front of somebody who's that same age now, and it's just not going to have the same impact because of the environment. It was something unduplicatable. That's long story short. It'd be cool to have the import version. Fooling around with the Embernick over the last couple days. I looked at the native OpenDingX games. When you get a hold of one of these things, there's like some games that are just loaded onto it. Like OpenJazz or OpenTyrene or something like that. One of them was Super Mario War, which I'd seen out before, but I was never able to get it to work. But this is the first time I tried it with the new like Atom operating system on the Embernick 280, and it worked. So Super Mario War in my pocket. That's been pretty fun to play. But that's not the reason I bring it up again. The reason I bring it up is because I came across a program called Easy RPG, and as it turns out, it's an interpreter for RPG Maker 2000 and 2003 games. So an interpreter, not to be confused with the ability to build games. It's not RPG Maker itself, but supposedly I can get 2K and 2K3 games to run on my Embernick, which makes me want to go back to 2K3 and work on that, simple little game that I was building. I got this program to run, but I have not yet tried to actually load a game into the interpreter for it to read and make playable. So that would be the awesomest of the awesome if I could get that to work. I would love that. That would be, to me, that would mean that the old ridiculous versions of RPG Maker, the ones that are routinely going for $2 and $1 and whatever, that would make those the best ones in my mind. To be able to play the games on an Embernick, especially since there's rpgmaker.net. You can go get a bunch of projects built by other people. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to make the games yourself. In fact, come to think of it, if you're downloading games, RPG Maker games from the internet to use on an interpreter, you don't really need to have RPG Maker, do you? So if you have one of these things, that's a whole nother can of worms that's left to explore, which is I don't know. To me, it's kind of exciting because I love the old RPG Maker games with all their flaws. To the average player, it's like whatever. I'm sure there's a handful of games that are standouts, but RPG Maker games at their best are still RPG Maker games. All right, bear with me. I'm going to pick up traffic circle here. Traffic circles require a little extra attention. Yeah, there we go. Going to pick up my dinner for my birthday. B-E-R-F, birthday. Lest you get confused. And I like Chinese food, so that's what we're going to get, because that's where it's at. All right, give me a second here. I think I'm going to be throwing this on pause so I can run in and get my meal. All right, I have acquired Chinese food. While I was in there waiting, I was looking around on my phone, and I looked up a bit more about this Easy RPG project. It's not just a thing for OpenDingX or whatever. They have it on a lot of platforms like Linux and Android and Windows and whatnot. And at first thought, I was like, what on earth good would it do to have an RPG Maker interpreter on Windows when you can just export the games to have an executable file and run all by themselves. But then it occurred to me, yes, but you can't do that on other platforms, only Windows. So then I was like, now wait a minute. Does that mean I can get my RPG Maker 2000 games to play on my phone? Because that's kind of neat. Not even that I would really want to spend time doing that, but just the fact that that's an option. It's pretty cool. So that was fun. I kind of want to look into that a little more and see what kind of trouble I can get into, so to speak. Yeah, that makes an RPG Maker 2000 project way more viable, way more portable, which is awesome. So that's kind of cool, I guess. It's tough to find time for games these days. It's even harder to find time to develop. Although, I still like the idea that if you develop something, even if you develop something bad, you have something for the fruits of your labor, which is kind of cool. I've given the fantasy console, fantasy platform thing another try. I messed with Pico 8 a little bit over the last couple days. I still have not been able to really produce anything from just the raw code using any of those devices. But I think they're neat. Something to be said just for the fact that we have stuff like that these days. How we doing now? 11 minutes in? Alright. I am a stone's throw away from Papa John's, where I'm going to pick up pizza to go with our Chinese food, because that's just how we roll. I'm looking at two people who are out jogging right now, just getting in shape and taking care of themselves, and I'm like, you guys got it wrong. You got to eat Chinese food with stuffed crust pizza, and that's how you live. It's how you live shorter, but it's how you live. And with that, I'm going to send you guys back to the studio. I'll see you there. Back again in the studio. This is now being recorded on the 10th, by the way. And since I made that auction for the Resident Evil, the original Japanese versions, Biohazard and Biohazard 1, that's still active. And the last time I checked, it was running at about $10. Let's see what we have now. So that's one that I was bid on. Yeah, $13.50. So still very, very low. And so I'm going to let that chill for a few more days. And I'll bid again closer to the end, because I don't want to drive the price up needlessly. All right, so let's go back to the Battle of the Bits Commodore Quadrilogy one last time here on Tiger Claw Radio. that square wave with Gotta Move. You gotta move, buddy. Here it comes. Good stuff. As far as I know, that album is still free on Bandcamp for now. So go get yourself a copy. It's not a long album when you look at the other Battle of the Bits releases, but it is a really good one. I've enjoyed this, more than some of their releases that have come out and been twice as long. While we're listening to some chiptunes, this is something I've been talking about on the Discord a little bit, is the chiptune compilation I've been working on for CME, and that was something I started probably like 7 or 8 months ago, worked on a little bit, and then kind of put away. Well, I had a thread going over on Reddit, and a bunch of people came out of the woodwork. Long story short, we're looking at, how many here? 15 tracks right now, and I don't have a track on it yet. So definitely going to be 16 tracks minimum when it comes out. So this one's from Bit Crush, and this was the first person to step up and get a spot. Bit Crush on Tiger Claw Radio. Let's take a listen. All right, we've advanced one day since the last bit. It's now the 11th, Friday morning. I spent last night playing Nobumaga's Ambition on the NES, which is... oh, hang on a second. Let's see if we can take care of that. Yeah, there we go. Lying in bed, playing the Amberneck, and I came across this game, Nobumaga's Ambition, pretty recently, and I think I mentioned it last week as well, but I really dug into it last night and played it for like an hour and a half or something, which is a lot for me. And I'm just shocked how much they were, in terms of scope, into an NES game. Hang on a second, let's see if I can take care of the static. There we go. I think we're better. I know Koei games are what they are, and I've talked about this months ago, like when I was really exploring Japanese PS1 games. Got a hold of some of the Koei games for PS1, from Japan. Beautiful looking games. Oh my gosh, they look great. Wish I could play them. Not in English. Can't find an English counterpart. But this was exploring. This game was really like, oh hey, there is some in English, not as much, but we have this series that ran all the way through. From the NES all the way up through PS1 or so. So I'm playing this game, and long, like I don't know if I'd call it hex based, because it's not. I don't think it's hex based. It's like tile based combat that's offset, so it's not hex based, but pretty close. Yeah, right up my alley. And I didn't think there was any kind of strategy game like that until, later on in consoles. This is an era where you could find that kind of thing on the computer, by the way. When did that come out? 1989? All right, so it would have been like... I don't have an answer for that. Yeah, shut up. It would have been like... what strategy games were out in 1989? Well, we had... Reach for the Stars, which was one my dad had, 4X, early 4X games on the PC. I don't know if the original Civilization was out. I think that would have come out the next year, right? Master of Orion, all that stuff. There were like a handful of like crazy deep titles. Didn't really have anything like that on the NES, because the NES target demographic was very, very different. So this was like a weird game that sort of broke that mold. And that in mind, I wonder who it was made for. And when I say who it's made for, I'm talking about like Western audiences. Because it's no surprise that we had something like that on the Famicom, but this game actually got ported to the West, right? There's an English official version of this game. And that kind of shocks me. Because there are a lot of games I think that would have suited Western audiences more that didn't make it. Yeah. Karateka for the NES. Perfect example. Super simple, stereoscoped combat animations. Very fluid, very easy to play. Great game. It's even conceptualized in the West. That's Jordan Mechner game. But the NES version, Famicom only, didn't get it on the Nintendo. But we did get Nobumaga's Revenge, or Nobumaga's Ambition, I mean. Which, shocks me a little bit. Especially because, like, the NES in 1989, right? So there was, like, 3 or 4 years out from the end of the life cycle. So it's not even, like, in that last wave of games. I don't know. Interesting little footnote in video gaming history. Not something I'm going to realistically stick with for a long period of time. I'm probably going to sit down with it maybe once more and then move on. But yeah, if you want to see a game that pushes the boundaries of the NES, play Nobumaga's Ambition. Play it at least once, even if you don't understand what's going on. Just take a look. It's bananas. It is bananas. All right, let's read the fail bag so we can bring it home. Nothing new on the Discord, but I do hope you'll join us on the Discord because I need someone else to help me out with my terrible RPG spam bot game. Epic RPG, which has been the biggest waste of time, but I do so enjoy it. But was some stuff over on the YouTube channel in response to Hemrock's awesome guest host episode. So give me a second here to bring that up. And here again, it'd be good to stop the recording to do this, but you stop the recording too many times and it never gets done, and that's what I'm finding. So right now, I just want to make sure that we go all the way to actually get this done. Heading over to the studio. Ugh. All right. Comments. Pull that off. Drop back. Desm 101. Good to hear from you, brother. 32 minutes in. I'm not against small game shops selling repros as long as they're forthcoming about it and make it very clear that they're not originals. The shops around my area do not have any repros, though. I do order them from systems like Sega Saturn since the original prices have skyrocketed. Super Game Boy is awesome. I recently got a Super NT and an FX Pack Pro. I'm able to load the Super Game Boy ROM via the flash card and open GB games that way. It's now my favorite way to play those classic Game Boy titles, especially when the game has added backgrounds meant for a Super Game Boy. Yeah, cool stuff. I have never run into a repro in the wild, with the exception of a convention, and I think at a convention it's different because you would see it at like a repro table or something. But I'm with you, man. I don't have a problem with Somari for the NES showing up at a shop somewhere as long as they're forthcoming, because you take something that never came out in the West. Like, what's a game that never came out in the West? In America, we never got the original Goonies game. We only had the Goonies 2. But it did show up for Play Choice 10. So there is an actual, English ROM circulating around. But there was never an NES cart. So if you make a repro of the original Goonies and you throw it in with retro games, people who don't know any better could get the wrong idea of what did or didn't come out. Small things like that, but they can make history distorted. And I think that's the only one from Desm. Good to hear from you, brother. Hope you're doing well. Mecha Menace. All right, give me a second here before I dig into Mecha Menaces, because he's got a few things he wants to go over. Alright, what do you got for me, Mecha? 28 minutes in. When I sell something on eBay, I clean the item, make sure it works, and describe the faults. That game store may have cleaned up its appearance, but it's not performing at a professional level. Isn't that the duty of a store? Doesn't matter if they give you a refund, they wasted your time and energy, and they're going on blind faith that customers will clean games and make sure they work. That store sucks. I guarantee that GBC card still worked. Somebody probably spilled soda on it and the syrup solidified over the years. Sometimes that syrup can take a little more time to remove, but yes, you would have to go take the card apart, clean it with some type of glass or surface cleaner before cleaning the pins. By the way, you definitely should open your GB Boy and clean the reader pins. Some gunk probably got scrubbed off on the pins of the cart you inserted. In other words, your GB Boy has been given an STD that will infect your other carts that you insert. Maybe it's only a little gunk, but you should probably scrub those pins and the pins of the carts inserted since the encounter of the dirty cart. Also, I guarantee that Shenzhen needs better cleaning. Firstly, I'd go at the pins with an eraser and wipe with a Q-tip in ISO. I guess isopropyl alcohol. Then wipe bits of the eraser away with a paper towel. You can still see some of the black. If you can still see some of the black gunk, it may need a very fine sandpaper, Mr. Clean eraser, or just some rubbing with a toothpick. Mostly the reason why I cleaned Shingen, I think the cleaned Shingen cart didn't work is because of the NES system pins were not clean. I think you know how finicky those things can be. Clean the 72 pin, clean the connector on the board itself. I do this every 6 months to a year. Even when not in use, the thing becomes a jerk. So with a screwdriver at regular, in I go with a screwdriver at regular intervals. I really should be getting that blinking light win. Yeah, I've heard of the thing with using the eraser to clean the connection pins. That's an old trick. I think I only ever actually had to do that myself like a handful of times, and it's been a lot of years. But yeah, that's a thing. Good tips from Mecha Menace, and he has one more. Repros suck, and if they label them as such, having very noticeable marks and sell them for dirt, I guess they're fine for a niche crowd that wants hard copies of fakes. You have to be more discerning when buying expensive games and look into more details. If you suspect something is a repro, I'm more accepting of hacks and unofficial ports, like the GG to SMS ports, though sometimes those have trade-offs and weird graphical glitches. I have a few hard copy hacks / translations, and I refrain from filling my library with these. I've been noticing 32X repros pop up on eBay during the past 2 years. I'm surprised the way that someone would invest in the technology to reproduce those, but hey, maybe they see a profit in this pocket market. You know, I don't hold the same disdain for repros you do, Mecha Menace. I do think you should be, just like you, I do think that there should be honesty. I do think that you're going to run into a lot of problems with repros that you wouldn't otherwise. Like I've seen people, I didn't run into this, but my buddy NG did. He bought a couple of repros at a convention, 5 or 6 years ago, brought them home, and they just didn't work, and there just wasn't anything he could do about it. So there's that. Also repros, especially on the NES, they have problems with the labeling. You know that little top part of NES games where the label folds over. I don't know what it is about repros. They always have problems with that little part. Sega Genesis too. But I don't know. There's nothing wrong with repros. You talk about a hard copy of fakes, but you also mentioned the part that I'm going to bring up. My counter to that would be, look, there's games you can get on a repro. You just can't get anywhere else. Sonic the Hedgehog is probably the most accessible example of this because there's a huge modding community behind Sonic the Hedgehog, and some of the better mods, you can order repros of the mods, hard copies of the mods, for very, very cheaply. My favorite one, I think, would be the one that I got from Sendu, like the very first Sonic hack I got that way, which was the Metal Sonic. It's a great game. Sonic Heroes is also really good, but those, $3.50. A little of this, a little of that, shows up in the mail. You're good to go. You got a good time ahead of you. That's a repro, but it's a different beast. And I think the reason why repros cost what they do is because people have to buy equipment to make them. Like, you can get an EEPROM reader for $50. You can buy a stack of chips. You can buy a stack of empty carts. Those things add up. So that stuff takes work, just like any other craft. It's different from buying a game that was assembled, 40 plus years ago, and just still works because it's been hanging around all that time. Those games, had their retail price paid at one point. A repro doesn't. The only problem I have with repros was in the early days of repros, they were only really made by cannibalizing existing carts. I don't like that practice. In the beginning, that would produce a more reliable repro, but we'd see the destruction of old games as a result. Nowadays, it's easier to get a hold of not just a donor cart, but like a reproduced board, like a brand new board with a brand new shell, and then new EEPROMs and everything from the ground up. That stuff is great. Come on, Mecha Menace. Come on, man. Tell me there's not a repro that you wouldn't love to have. Tell me there's not one single Mecha Menace. It's you're a collector. I get that, because you have the collector brain. One example I have that I think you would disagree greatly on is I have my copy of Splatterhouse 2 for the Sega Genesis, and it's a reproduction. And I got it for that cheap, Sega Genesis price that I told you about. So it was like $3.50 or something. It was dirt cheap, just like you said. I love my copy of Splatterhouse 2 because gameplay-wise, Splatterhouse 2 is very memory-oriented. It's very early action arcade. It's not very sophisticated in terms of gameplay. Splatterhouse is what it is because of how it looks, but it still plays like an old game. Sorry to say, it's a little clunky. It's near and dear to my heart too, but it's not perfect. You know what I'm saying? It's not one of these games like Metal Storm for the NES, where you pay a big price, you get it, and you get some sort of evolved gem that plays a cut above everything else. No, that ain't what it is. You want to get a hard copy of Splatterhouse 2, it's going to really cost you. And I think it costs a heck of a lot more than it's worth, in my opinion. I'm sorry. This is, a hot take from CF. Fun game. I'm not trying to talk trash about Splatterhouse. I just think the price is way overinflated. It's an example of this, us old guys chasing these retro games. This is an example of that market just, exploding and being, a little bit too big for its britches. Let's see what one of these things cost. Splatterhouse 2 Authentic. And I know this is going to be an inflated price. We're talking cart only. Yeah, there it is. Buy it now. $92.99. And let's take into account that I'm looking at the very first one, and you could probably stock it and get it for like 3/4 of that. That's still a lot of money, brother. Splatterhouse 2 Sega Genesis custom game tested 32. That's a repro. Better repro than mine, but my repro was Splatterhouse 2. Oh no, here's an authentic one. That's at auction for $65. That's still pretty expensive, man. Still pretty expensive. I feel like $65 is a little bit more in the realm of reality. It's more than I would pay, but that's more what I would think of as like, hey, this is an expensive game. My copy, like the label work, is just absolutely terrible. Long story short, there is no mistaking my copy of Splatterhouse 2 as a reproduction. There's just no way. Like if I were to do a video of my Sega Genesis collection and I got to Splatterhouse 2, I would pick it up and say, this is my garbage remake or my garbage repro of Splatterhouse 2, right? It's not like a game that the shell doesn't look like the original version. The label doesn't look even close to the original version. It's flapping all around. It's not. This is not a fake. I guess it is a fake, but it's not a good fake. It's not one that's designed to be indistinguishable from the original. Oh, and if you have a trained eye, you can notice the differences. No. This is a ROM on a cart, and that's it, with a cheap sticker. And because it existed, I was able to play Splatterhouse 2 on my Genesis. And it is I don't know. I would love to hear your thoughts on it, Mecca, because that's something I have that I enjoy that goes quite contrary to a lot of your beliefs. So let me know, brother. Last one, he says, not only does Super Game Boy offer a wider color palette and special borders, but when used with certain games, it unlocks features like 2-player mode without linking a Game Boy or an additional game on the cart. What games? I've never heard of that. That is awesome. I've always known about the special borders, but around the time the Super Game Boy came out, like pre-Pokemon, I remember nobody having a link cable. I remember asking around, oh, you got a Game Boy? You got Tetris? You got a link cable? There was always a no in there somewhere. So I would be interested to hear about what game. Super Game Boy was super... It was super awesome is what it was. Yeah, I was way more into it back in those days. These days, a little bit less, just because there's more options when it comes to playing the old Game Boy games. Like if I'm not going to play it on like a Game Boy Color or like a Game Boy Pocket or something, or an actual Game Boy, then I'll probably just move to some sort of emulation machine. Just because I think at that point there's ways to do it where it looks better. Although I will say this, if you're using your Super Game Boy, and you're a Pokemon player, then you can chill out and play your Pokemon game on the TV without having to like shuffle saves around, So there's that. It's definitely cool. For a long time, Super Game Boy stuck out to me as the way to get pictures off of your Game Boy camera. And I have a Super Game Boy that I've held on to for decades, and that's what it got used for. I have a Game Boy camera that Hemrock gave me. I took pictures of my oldest son when he was 1 year old. By the way, he's 12 now. And those pictures, which at the time were just like, hey, I got this Super Game Boy. I got this Game Boy this Game Boy camera. I'm having a hard time talking. My brain's starting to go. Let's just take some pictures and have some fun. I didn't realize these were going to be like, pictures that were near and dear to my heart. But sure enough, if you're a parent, you know it. Kids grow, and they grow faster than you realize in the moment. As my wife likes to say, and I think she's spot on, she says, the days are long, but the years are short. That's something she said a while back that really stuck with me. And there you go. Now I have these Game Boy camera pictures of my little boy before he could talk or walk. And now he's telling fart jokes and stealing the Game Boys out of my office. So yeah, I don't know. Much love for the Super Game Boy. It was a beloved piece of my collection for a long time, although I haven't used it in quite a while. And then we've got, on my video about the Ambernick 280V versus the Powkiddy V90, someone says, someone got FF7 to work. You love to hear it. Yes, indeed you do. And that is it. That is it for TCR this week. We're almost at the 50-minute mark. I had a lot of difficulty putting this one together. But I got to say, it feels good to be back on the air after a couple weeks off. I hope everybody is doing well. Take care of yourselves, and I want to say I'll see you next week, but at this rate, I might be dropping to one every other week. So stick with me. I'll see you soon as I can. Take care.